So in this clip I want to go over and show you guys how to get your notepad, your 5x8 notepads, set up to be 2 up on a page so you can print multiples of them and utilize your paper. For this we have full-side bleeds, a full-sided bleed for this project. We will also set them side by side. We also have our artwork that's past the bleed area. It's okay to go past the bleed area, but that prevents some problems when we go to make it multiple up. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to clip off all these extra elements that we don't need. And if you go in and diagnose this design, you can see that it's got 2 colors. It's a 2-color design. It's utilizing black and then 2 tints of the black. The K there is right there for the black. So we're just utilizing the K and the CMYK for the 1 spot color. So that's our black spot color. That one's at 100%. And you can see that this is 15%, which has a full bleed. So anytime you have an element that goes to this final trim line, which is represented with this black rectangle, it actually needs to go past that to the bleed or be inset with a margin. I don't have my rulers and my guides set up right now. I've cleared those out so we can lay it out at 2 up. But now that I've got that, we want to come in, and also I've got the second color, which is the 575, and I've got several screens of that as well, several tints of that color. And then here it is at 100%. So now that I've looked at the artwork, we want to go ahead and trim off all the excess. So first thing I do before I drag this box out, I'm going to come back, delete that box, and you want to select all your artwork. And you also want to group it. So we can go up to Object and Group. So we selected all our artwork. You can also go up to Select All to select all of it, and then Object and Group. So we want to make sure it's grouped. Then you can come over and select a rectangle and draw a rectangle that's the size. Now I have my smart guide, so it'll automatically snap to that 5 1/4. And now we're going to do it the whole bleed size and just trim off everything outside the bleed. So since we grouped that and we have this object in front, we can select both of those. So we can go up to Object, or I'm sorry, Select and select all. And then we can go into Object and use the clipping mask option here. Clipping mask and make will give us that, and that will trim it off, give us a nice clean edge that we can line it up 2 up. When we place something in InDesign, we don't need to do that, but for Illustrator to do it 2 up, we'll need to do that. So now that we've got that set up, we want to go into our document setup, so File and Document Setup, and click the Edit Artboards. At that point in time, we're going to change it. Now the width, instead of just being 10, we'll make it 10 inches, and then we'll add in a 1/4 inch, which will incorporate the bleeds that will be in the middle. So we've got it there, and then I just click another tool to deselect that. You could hit enter to update it. And now that we've got our artwork, the nice thing about the clipping mask is it's all grouped up. Okay. So we've got that, we moved it into place. We can go up to Edit, Copy, come back up to Edit and Paste, and then we can move that one into place. And we can visually recognize that it's actually lining up into the proper place. So once we've done that, you notice our rulers sometimes get shifted. They may not be set up correctly, so we can double click the arrow to reset it. We can drag that out, and remember the black line is our final trim line, and that's where we set our 0 point. So we could do it there, or we could double click it. The default, this is the height here. The 0 point is actually in Illustrator on the bottom left. So we've got that in there. We've got our 0 point. We can now start making some guides. So we can drag out a guide, and we're going to put that right at 5 inches, which is our final trim size. Okay, and you can see that's just to the left of the middle mark there. And then we can put another one at 5 1/4. Okay, and that will just help us line up our little trim marks. Now we need to come in and draw some trim marks. So I'm going to eyeball this, but we can do it about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. We can use the point of origin here as a reference, and we can actually bring the size down and make it exactly 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and once we have that, we're going to want to come over and assign a color to it. We'll assign 100% black for this. This may be a case where you use registration, but we'll just use the 100% black right there for this particular one. So we've got that there, and it's set up exactly where we need it. We can verify it with the X and the Y coordinates, exactly where it is, but it looks good. We've got it at 5 inches, and then we can put it over here and copy it over. So in order to copy that, we've got it selected. We can go up to Object, Transform, and bring up the Move dialog box. So once in here, we've got variations. We can tell it that we want to move it 0.25, which is a 1/4 inch, which should get us where we need to go. And then you've got the angle. The angle is kind of a tricky thing. If I want to move it to the right, we need to start off with the 0 degrees. So this is based off of 360-degree angles. So if we want to move it to the right, we'll use a 0 degree. If we want to move the object straight up and down, we can use 90. We'll go up. And then 180 degrees will move it left, and 270 degrees will move it down. So for this instance, we want to move it right, so we're going to type in 0 there, and we can go ahead and hit the tab key to preview it. You see it moves into place, and I can copy that. So that moved it over. Now that I've got those, I can also go up to Object and Group. Now a lot of times you'll have the show bounding box will be on. I like to turn that show bounding box off at that point, and that will allow you to select it. We can move that down, and if you press the Shift key and the Option keys, that'll actually copy that into place. Okay, and we can move that up into exactly on that line, get it exactly lined up there. So that will give you the true trim marks. Now we need those trim marks. They're not automatically created. There's no setting within the program that will allow for that. So we need those for when we make the PDF. Now at this point we can actually go to File and Save As and give us a PDF there, and we can override the document bleed settings to 1/4 inch to encompass those. Because right now if we make a PDF, it won't incorporate those unless we tell it. Now I've actually ran into some problems with that, found some bugs. For this example, and before we get too far, it's always a good idea to come in and go to save it as the 2-up version, Notepad 2-up. So we'll save that. Got one in there. Just want to make sure we have that. And you keep your original, so those would be 2 separate files. But at this time, we're going to go in and actually change the bleed from 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. Make sure it's spanned in all 4 of those boxes. So we've got that, and that will encompass and incorporate the trim marks for that particular document. So once we have that, we can go into Save As, and this is the point where you would pick the PDF. So we'll save that in there. For this, usually the Illustrator default is a good default to use. I always go to the high quality print, especially if this is going to be an offset printed job. So I'll pick that one. As soon as we change the bleed settings, that'll make it a custom and change that. So we'll go ahead and use the document bleed settings. We also want to add just the trim marks. You can add the page information, that's optional. So that will put the trim marks around the corner edges. And at that point we can go ahead and save that PDF. Okay, and we'll minimize this, pull this up, and we'll actually take a look at this, and there is the PDF. Okay. Now if you look at that, that's bigger, 11.17 by 8.92. That's bigger than 8.5 by 11. So it's possible that there could be some trimming, bring up the rulers, where that may trim off. But hopefully we'll catch a little sliver of that trim mark that we can go off of. We don't want them, when you print it, they're going to want to scale it to fit. We definitely don't want that auto fit option on there, so we want to turn that off. We don't want to make it fit the printable area. So if you go to Kinko's or somewhere, we want to turn that to none. Make sure that they don't scale it. And you can see that's going to trim off most of that. All we really need is a sliver of that mark to show up, and we're good to go. Even if it's not there, we can pull out a ruler and figure out what's going on.